A very good morning, class 9 students. I welcome you all on this online platform provided by Jagrati Classes. So we were doing chapter 13th of class 9th, Why Do We Fall Ill? And we'll be continuing with the chapter. In the last video lecture, I told you about the different modes of spreading of infectious disease, and we also discussed some of the infectious diseases, that is some of the common agents which are being given in your books which causes infectious disease, like the Kala Azar disease. And we discussed Kala Azar disease is caused by the microbe Leishmania. It is a protozoan. Then in the same terms we discussed the SARS virus and different virus. So next we discussed how can a sick person transmit the disease to a healthy person. So there were different modes of transfer. I explained you everything, and then you all have to give an example that if you are telling that air is a means of transfer, so by air which kind of infections or which kind of diseases can be spread. So you have to name at least 2 to 3 diseases which are spread by air. Then what are the waterborne diseases? For example, cholera, diarrhea, these are waterborne, and these may be transferred from sick person to the healthy person. Okay, so these all we have discussed. Then now the next topic which we are going to study, or for today's class, a new topic which would be started is organ specific and tissue specific manifestations. So now this is a topic which is given in your books, organ specific and tissue specific manifestations. So what do you understand by this topic, or simply if we say what you have to study in this topic? So a summary for this topic would be that the entry point of the pathogen or of the microbe. In the previous video lecture, we have also discussed the 3 important terms, that is host, vector and pathogens. So if I give you a recap, host is the healthy individual in which the disease is caused by the attack of pathogens or by the transfer of disease through vectors. So vectors are what? They are the agents which are intermediaries or intermediate agents which only transfer the disease from the sick person to the healthy person, that is to the host. Whereas what do you understand by the term pathogens? Pathogens are the actual disease causing organisms which attack the host. So pathogens are responsible for causing the disease, and vectors like mosquitoes and houseflies, they are responsible for transferring the disease. They do not have the ability to cause the disease themselves, but they just transfer the disease. Okay, we have discussed the example of mosquito also, how it transfers malaria. So now coming on to this topic, what a summary would be, that entry point of the microbe, whatever the microbe we are referring here, it can either be a vector or a pathogen here. So entry point of the microbe decides the target organ, or you can say the target tissue. Target organ or target tissue means the organ which is being targeted, or the organ on which the attack by the microbe is seen, is observed. Okay, so it is regarded here as target organ, because for the incoming microbe, the organ or on the tissue on which whatever it would attack, then it would serve as the target organ or the target tissue here. And accordingly, due to the attack of this microbe on a particular organ or on a particular tissue, accordingly symptoms are produced. Okay, symptoms of disease occur. So this is the basic summary of this topic, what you have to study. Now you can have many examples and then you can give the examples, but this is the clear summary, the concept of this topic. We have to study the organ specific and tissue specific manifestations, diseases. So I told you that based on the entry point of the microbe decides the tissue on which it would attack, which is called the target tissue. And in turn you will have, or the infected person would have, some particular symptoms of the disease. Let's make the concept more clear by providing you with an example. Let's suppose I say The disease which I am talking about is tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, TB, okay? You all know it is a lung infection where a person suffers from severe cough. So tuberculosis, which is often regarded as TB here, this is a disease in the example. This is the name of the disease which you have in front of you. And let's suppose this is caused by a bacteria. So the bacteria would be the pathogen here, the attacking microbe. So bacteria is a microbe which is responsible for causing tuberculosis. And next is what? Now, from where does the microbe of this disease enters in the body of host? So this microbe enters through the mouth. Okay, it is a airborne disease. It is an infectious disease, and the tuberculosis can spread from a sick person to a healthy person by air, through air, by droplet infection. Okay, that is whenever the tuberculosis suffering person would cough, then the droplets would be released in the nearby environment, and when these droplets are inhaled by a healthy person, then he or she might get the disease tuberculosis. So tuberculosis is the disease, and the microbe which is causing tuberculosis, it enters. What is the entry point of this microbe? The entry point of the microbe causing tuberculosis is nose or mouth. Okay, so the entry point is nose or mouth. So now you can say that this is the entry point, and because the microbe is entering to the host organism through his nose or through its mouth, then the target organ here would be nose and mouth. These are, if I say, let's suppose more specifically we are referring that the entry point is nose. So with the nose you have the respiratory system, and the most important part of respiratory system are your lungs. So in turn we can say that this entry point, because the microbe is entering through the nose of host organism, then through the nose you have the connected system, that is respiratory system, and the target organ would be the respiratory system, or more preferably you can write here lungs. So you see the microbe which was entering through the nose, it attacked on the lungs, and hence we had a disease tuberculosis. That is when the lungs would be affected, you would have many symptoms like cough, then it can produce certain amount of difficulty in breathing, then the person might have some chest pain. So these are all the symptoms which are related to infection in lungs. So this is what I want to clarify your concept, that is the entry point of the microbe decides the target organ. If let's say we have any other disease like jaundice. So in jaundice, the microbe enters. The microbe enters from where? The entry point of the microbe is, you can say, from the contaminated water. Okay, the entry point can be contaminated water. And because it is entering through the contaminated water, then the target organ is liver. Okay, so in jaundice the microbe, it enters through contaminated food and water, and then the microbe attacks on liver. So because it is entering from the contaminated food or water that is related to the digestive system, then it attacks the organ related to digestive system, liver. Now in this case, the microbe which is related, that is its entry point is related to the digestive system, to the gut, it cannot cause any harm on the lungs. So the entry point of the microbe itself decides its target organ here. Let's suppose I say a person is suffering from a kind of skin infection which is caused by a fungus. That is, he or she has a fungal infection. In turn, we can say that the fungal infection might be caused, that is a skin disorder, it might be due to the exposure of skin to certain products or to some bad quality products. Okay, so that skin which is exposed, which is being exposed to certain circumstances in the outer environment, due to which the fungus attacked on the skin. So now this fungus which is acting on the skin or attacking on the skin, it does not produce any harm to the remaining body parts or to the remaining organs of the body. Like this fungal infection would not affect the liver or the lungs in this case. So this is what organ specific and tissue specific manifestations mean. That is, the entry point of the microbe decides the target organ or the target tissue. Target organ is the organ on which the microbe attacks, and in turn a specific disease occurs in the body. Disease is what? The disturbed ease. So this topic is the concept. I hope this is clear enough now. So now we are moving to the next topic. I told you in the previous video class that you should learn some of the diseases. Examples of disease caused by virus, protozoa, worms. Okay. Some diseases we have discussed in the previous lesson, and these are from your, this extract is again from your NCERT textbooks. It is given some common examples of diseases. So first microbe we are considering is virus. From virus, the diseases are cold, influenza, dengue fever and AIDS. Then you should remember the diseases caused by bacteria. So the diseases caused by bacteria include typhoid, then typhoid fever, cholera, tuberculosis and anthrax. Then you can also have some common skin infections, and these are categorized or these are caused by fungus. Then protozoans are the microbes that cause many familiar disease like malaria and Kala Azar. We have discussed, okay, protozoas cause Kala Azar, and the protozoan which is responsible for causing Kala Azar is what? Leishmania. So this we have discussed in previous class. Then all of us have common worm infections. So intestinal infections are caused generally by the worms, and also there are diseases like elephantiasis in which the limbs of a person get swollen to a big size, okay, to the elephant size. So this disease is elephantiasis. It is very dangerous disease and it is also caused by worms. So now you can learn now the different diseases, okay, which are caused by virus, bacteria, protozoas and worms. Now moving on to the next, okay, before doing principles of prevention, you have in your book one more topic. Okay, it is organ specific and tissue specific we have already done. Then you have principles of treatment and principles of prevention. So before preventing any disease, we have to study a topic which is principle of treatment. See, in your books you have been given these topics. These are very easy. If you will go through the book once, you will understand. You are being given the different examples related to different disease. So here just I am clarifying the concept that what is the principle of treatment? What is the meaning of this topic? So treatment you all know. If we keep much safety, but then also we encounter some disease or we get a disease, what we'll do is we'll try to treat that disease. So the treatment can be done firstly on our own, that is if we follow the home remedies or if we take the general medicines on our own. And the next step of treatment would be, that is to consult a doctor, a physician, and then take accordingly the prescribed treatment. So principles of treatment, these principles of treatment can be generalized into two categories. So we are saying you have two levels of treatment. For treating any kind of disease, you can follow two levels of treatment. The first level would be what? Okay. So you can have two levels of treatment. The first would involve a general treatment, and the second level of treatment would involve the actual treatment. Okay, I am classifying treatment into two different levels. The first one is a general kind of treatment and the next one is the actual treatment. General treatment actually involves, let's see, whenever you have a disease, in this disease you will have some signs and symptoms. Okay, every disease has a particular group of symptoms which are associated with that disease. So every disease has some signs and symptoms which are particular to only that category of disease. So general treatment would involve treatment of the general symptoms which you have. Like if I talk about common cold, then a person suffering from common cold, he or she can have a mild fever, then he or she may have headache. So if, for example, we take the disease to be common cold here. So common cold, you all know, is a respiratory infection, and with the basic symptoms or with the particular symptoms of the disease, like what would be the particular symptoms here? Particular symptoms of the disease would be what? You'll have sneezing problem, cold, then you'll have cough here, and then, okay, and other respiratory problems. Okay? But what are the general symptoms? Other than these particular symptoms, there may be some general symptoms present, and these general symptoms might be the presence of mild fever, then the person may feel weakness, he or she may experience headache also. Okay? And then you do not want to eat anything, okay? You don't feel like eating. So these are some of the general symptoms. And every disease has these two categories of symptoms. That is, every disease has some particular symptoms which are only present for the particular disease itself. And then you have some general symptoms. That is, fever, weakness, headache. These are very general symptoms. Whenever we are having any kind of disease, then these symptoms also persist. So general treatment involves treatment of the general symptoms. So what we'll do is, if we are suffering from any disease and we are feeling headache, mild fever, then we'll be taking paracetamols to control our fever, and then we'll be taking some antibiotics and some B complexes or calcium medicines to prevent weakness and headaches. Okay? Then general treatment, if we describe, it involves treatment of general symptoms, as I already discussed, okay? And this treatment is done by the person itself or by the individual itself. But the actual treatment is to know. Actual treatment means to determine or to know the cause of disease. So how you can know the cause of disease? By consulting the doctor. By consulting the doctor. Only the doctor can tell you the exact cause of the disease, and then after knowing the exact cause, let's suppose the doctor told you that the disease which you are facing is due to the attack of a particular microbe. Then what would we do in actual treatment? We find the ways to kill the microbe. Okay? So actual treatment involves the killing of the microbe which is responsible to cause that particular disease. Whereas general treatment, if I summarize, then you can say that general treatment only reduces the symptoms of the disease. Okay? But this actual treatment, it actually cures the disease. So these are the difference between the two categories of treatment. This is very easy. I hope you have understood, okay? All these are very basic terms. Just you have to elaborate the terms if you are asked in examination questions related to this topic. So I hope now once you'll read the books also, and after my explanation it would be clear enough. Still also, if you have doubts, you can contact us. So these are the concept involved in the principle of treatment. Now next what you have is the principle of prevention. Okay, before moving on to that topic, you have one more point in this. We have said that general treatment means which reduces the symptoms of the disease, and actual treatment involves the curing of that disease. And how the disease is cured? By killing the microbe. So microbes can be categorized into various categories. As I told you, they may be viruses, worms, protozoans, bacteria, etc. So you have different categories of microbes. And because all the microbes are of different category, like we say virus, then you have bacteria, worms, protozoans. So all these microbes, they cause infection in a different manner. But if we can generalize the rule, then all these microbes and the virus, they can be categorized into two groups or two categories. These bacteria, worms and protozoa, what do is, they use their own bacterial tissues. Okay, in case of bacteria, the bacteria would be using their own bacterial tissues. In case of protozoa, these microbes would be using their own tissues. So you can say that they use their own tissues and pathways to multiply whenever they enter the host's body. Whenever they enter the body of host. Host is the healthy person on which the bacteria are attacking, and then they are causing a disease. So all these categories of worms, if we say, then they use their own bacterial pathways and machinery. That is, whenever they enter the host, they do not use any process of the host. They in turn use their own machinery to replicate, to produce their similar bacterial copies. But virus is a very interesting creature, okay? Because outside the body, whenever the virus is present outside the host or outside the organism's body, then it is present in a dead form. But whenever the virus enters inside any organism which serves as the host for the virus, then they become alive. So virus is a very important category of microbes. Much research is being going on virus. It is neither classified as living and it is neither classified as a dead organism. Because outside, whenever the virus is present in the environment, it is present as a dead form. But whenever virus finds a suitable host, then inside the host, when the virus comes, it becomes active. That is, it becomes alive. So this is a special case of virus. And you are also being given, that is, if you have any infection due to bacteria, then we use antibiotics. Okay? Anti here means, you know, anti means opposite, and biotic means opposite to biotic means life. So actually, these antibiotics are the medicines or drugs which work on bacteria to kill the bacteria. Okay? But antibiotics and these are also anti-protozoan medicines are also available, because generally bacteria and some other microbes, what they do is whenever they enter the host body, then they make a certain type of wall around it to protect themselves. And what antibiotics do is they destroy the wall present around the bacterial cell, and hence kill the bacteria, and then it kills the bacteria. But what happens? Virus do not produce any kind of wall on its surface. So because bacteria, see, whenever, let's suppose the host here is human. So if we consider that a bacteria has attacked on humans, then human cells, the cells of humans do not produce any kind of wall, similar to the bacterial cell. And because both the process, that is, the process of human cells and the process of bacterial cells are different, then we can easily make some medicines which are specific to attack only on the cell walls of the bacteria, and hence they do not cause any harm to the host cell. And in this way, we say that antibiotics are quite easy to prepare. These are easy to prepare, but because these viruses do not use their own tissues and organs. They use the host tissues and organs, That is, in short, you can say the virus use host machinery to multiply and then they increase in number. Multiplication means reproduction in virus. So the virus, they do not use their own machinery. When they enter the host, they get alive, or you can say they get active. These viral cells get activated and then they start using the host machinery for multiplying and increasing in numbers. So because the virus is using the host machinery, so antiviral drugs or antiviral medicines are difficult to make. Why so? Now I think you would have understood. See, the machinery or the process of multiplication of the human cell and the bacterial cell is quite different. So we can make certain antibiotics which only attack on the bacteria and they do not attack on human cells. But because viruses are using the human machinery only for its replication or for its reproduction, then it is not easier for us to make some medicines, okay, that only attacks this virus and do not cause any harm to our own tissues and organs. But after much research, now many antiviral drugs has been synthesized. But you can get this question, and I again have an extract for you from your textbooks. It is written, why making antiviral medicines is harder than making the antibacterial medicines? So you can get this question, that why antiviral medicines is harder to make than the antibacterial medicines. So the reason behind is that, and this gives you the answer to the question which I recently explained you. Now I'll just read out. The reason is what? Because viruses have few biochemical mechanisms of their own. They enter our cells and use our machinery. Viruses have very few mechanisms or very few tissues and organs of its own. Once it enters the host body, they use our own machinery, that is the machinery of host, for their life processes. This means that there are very few virus-specific targets to aim at. And because the viruses are using the host machinery, then we have many small regions on which we can research and then we can make the medicines which just attack on those virus organisms, okay? It is difficult to make because there are very few virus-specific targets. Despite this limitation, because we have much advancement in science, effective antiviral drugs are being made. For example, HIV infection, HIV AIDS, which is caused by the virus, okay? Then a question can be asked, AIDS is the name of the disease and it is a viral infection. It is an infectious disease and this is caused by what? HIV virus. So sometimes you can get a full form, that is what is the expanded form of AIDS and HIV. So AIDS here means acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, okay? So AIDS is a disease caused by a virus and the full form of AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency. That is, whenever a person gets the disease AIDS, then his or her immune system becomes very deficient or very weak. And syndrome means, in this syndrome means a disease which has a group of symptoms, okay? And the name of the virus, HIV, the expanded name is human immunodeficiency virus. So human immunodeficiency virus is the causative agent of AIDS. So this is what, and then we'll be starting, I hope you have understood this question, we'll be starting the next topic, which is principles of prevention. So again, see, we have dealt with, if we have infection, then we can treat the disease. Then you have two kinds of treatments, general treatment and the actual treatment. General treatment means to reduce the symptoms of the disease. Actual treatment means to actually know the cause and then try to kill that microbe or kill the cause of the disease. So in this manner, we have to study the topic principles of prevention. That is, you all have heard the saying which is, prevention is better than cure. Okay, you all know in the present scenario, you have a disease, COVID-19, which is caused by coronavirus. So because we do not have the cure of the disease, it would be found out very soon, but because we do not have any kind of vaccination or the cure for this disease, then we say that prevention is better. And what is the basic prevention of this disease? It is a viral infection, and the basic prevention is you should keep personal hygiene, community hygiene, and then you should wear a mask every time, okay? So this is the prevention of the disease. If you are wearing the mask and you are practicing using sanitizers, okay, frequently, keeping yourself hygienic, then you would be protected from the infection. So we have learned that prevention is better than cure. So here's how to prevent a disease you have to study in this topic. So let's see, but there are, okay, all of what we have talked about so far deals with how to get rid of an infection in someone who has the disease. That is, how to treat the infection. After getting disease, what we can do to improve our condition. But there are 3 limitations to this approach. The first is that once someone has a disease, their body functions are damaged and may never recover completely, okay? That is, let's suppose taking a very common example, if we get pneumonia, then what is that? Our lungs will recover. But it is found in a study that 1 to 2% portion of the lungs gets damaged, okay? They cannot recover completely now. So it is a very mere portion, but here it is given that once you get a disease, your body functions do not work properly, and it might happen that some infection is still left, or some part of the body or that particular tissue where you had the disease is now not as original or as which you had it initially. So it might get damaged and it may never recover completely, or you can say it may take a very long time to fully recover. The second limitation is that treatment will take time, which means that someone suffering from a disease is likely to be bedridden for some time, even if we can give. That is, treatment of a disease takes time. It is not that after an instance, you will get healthy again, okay? Then the third limitation is, the person suffering from an infectious disease can serve as the source, that is, he or she can transfer the disease to rest of the individuals or rest of the community members. So these are the 3. We have studied that science is very advanced. We have treatment for all of the disease or most of the disease. But then why we are studying prevention? Because if you get the disease, then you suffer from these 3 limitations. So it is always better that prevention should be done, okay? And here it is also written, see, prevention of a disease is better than its cure. And then how can you prevent a disease? So the topic is by immunization. So this is a history of immunization. Immunization means vaccination, okay? Yes, vaccination and immunization are important, are the synonyms or the common terms. See how the vaccination was developed. So this vaccination developed for smallpox disease. Few hundred years back, this smallpox was like an epidemic. Like we have COVID-19 in today's scenario. So 100 years back, we had smallpox as an epidemic. But then its vaccination was discovered, and then it is now extinct. The disease is no more, okay? Famously, 2 centuries ago, an English physician, so Edward Jenner realized that the milkmaids who had cowpox did not catch smallpox even during the epidemics. So what Jenner found that the milkmaids who had once the disease cowpox, they do not got smallpox disease, even when the time of epidemic, that is when the smallpox was spreading whole across the country, whole across the region. Cowpox is a very mild disease, okay? Cowpox is a acute disease. So Jenner tried to deliberately give cowpox to the people and found that they were now resistant to smallpox. And then this was because the smallpox virus, see, the reason is the virus causing smallpox is closely related to the virus causing cowpox. Cow is vacca in Latin and cowpox is vaccinia. From these 2 words, the word vaccination came. So this is a case study which is being given. What it is said that the persons, the milkmaids which were suffering from cowpox. Okay, cowpox is an acute disease. It is a very mild disease. But these milkmaids who suffered from cowpox, they did not get smallpox infection. So Edward Jenner researched, and then he found that the virus responsible for cowpox disease is very similar to the virus causing smallpox. So what he did is, he took the virus out from the body of milkmaids who were having cowpox, and then he put those virus into healthy organisms or into the individuals who were suffering from smallpox. And then he observed that if the virus from the cowpox disease he took out and he gave this virus into a healthy person, so now this person never suffered from smallpox disease. So what he concluded is, he made the term vaccination or immunization. So what is, so vaccination is derived from a Latin language. Cow means vacca and vaccinia, cowpox means vaccinia, and in term this process was called vaccination, and Edward Jenner is responsible for finding vaccination here. Okay. Now you have vaccination for many disease, like see, you have the vaccination against all these disease, tetanus, diphtheria, whooping cough, measles, polio, and many others. Okay. So now we'll study what do you actually mean by vaccination. Vaccination, you know, these are generally given in the form of injections, and they might be incorporated, like the common example of vaccination are the polio drops. These polio drops, they fight against polio infection. Previously, when this vaccination was not developed, then polio disease, this polio infection, what happens in polio infection? The limbs, that is the hands and legs of an individual, are not properly developed. Okay? The individual might lack the limbs, he or she might not have hands and legs not properly developed, or even the chances may be that the hands and legs which are developed are very weak, so that the person cannot walk or he or she cannot do the basic daily activities. So but when this polio drop serves as the vaccine for polio, and in this vaccine what is being done? How a vaccine is being made? So to make a vaccine, you take the weakened microbes, okay? Weakened, and which microbes we take? The microbes which are responsible for, or which are the cause of the disease. That is the microbe virus which is responsible for causing polio. That microbe is taken, and then that microbe is weakened. Okay, that is its disease causing ability is reduced. And such microbes constitute the vaccine. Yes, the vaccine contains those germs or those microbes which are the cause of that infection, but they are present in a very weak state. That is, they will not cause any disease. Okay, so why we are taking weak microbes? Because when these weakened microbes in the form of vaccine are given to a person, then after the entry of microbe in our body, our immune system gets activated. Immune system is what? The system which fights from infections and diseases. So the immune system gets activated, and after getting activated, it fights with the microbe. So it is, see, immune system also activates WBC, white blood cells, which are called soldiers of the body, and then these WBC, they fight with the microbe. Because the microbe is present in a very weak form, then the microbe easily gets destroyed. And then after fighting, the immune system has a memory and it remembers the microbe. So in future, if that individual, if that person will encounter the same microbe in actual environment, then the immune system will recognize the microbe, okay, and then it would fight with the microbe. So these weakened microbes are given so that the immune system can fight, and then it can store the microbe or remember the microbe in its memory. So whenever if we find or if we encounter the microbe in the nearby environment, then the immune system will regain the memory, it will remember, and then it would fight and we will not get disease. Like we say, once a person gets chickenpox, then there are very less chances that chickenpox will happen again. Because once the microbe of chickenpox is being remembered by immune system, now this immune system has become strong to fight with the microbe. So this completes your chapter 13, Why Do We Fall Ill? Thank you for joining today's class. If you have any sort of queries, okay, you can contact us anytime, and do practice all the concept, all the NCERT textbook questions in text and the exercise question given in your books. Thank you.